Olivia King nodded mechanically and thanked those who had come to say goodbye to her husband, Michael, at this last moment. Tears streamed into her eyes, turning the faces of even the people closest to her into indistinct contours. Her soul was torn from the compulsive sympathy, the meaningless words and regrets, the prying eyes. Olivia wanted to hide somewhere far away, to try to understand what had happened. Michael wasn't in poor health. He led a healthy lifestyle that didn't devolve into an obsession with dieting and restriction. At least, that's what Olivia thought. He didn't smoke, rarely allowed himself alcohol, preferring quality to volume, and it didn't happen more than once a week, or even twice a week. Working out at the gym was part of the regular schedule of his life. He was supposed to live and let live. But an unexpected set of circumstances came crashing down on the King family in an instant. Michael was slightly over the speed limit on a deserted, wet road after a downpour. This neglect had an irreparable result in accident. The car in the ditch was not immediately noticed. Someone later said that if Michael had been taken to the hospital early, there would have been a better chance of rescue. The wrecked car was declared unrepairable by experts. Meanwhile, the strong body of the 33-year-old man clung tenaciously to life, impressing even experienced doctors. Olivia, who was forbidden to enter the intensive care unit, in anxious desperation ran to the nearest temples, prayed to icons, begging them not to take away her husband. But there was no miracle. Only 2 days of struggle, and the decision was taken by fate. And at that fateful moment, Olivia was approaching the hospital to find out for herself about her husband's condition. She tripped on a flat spot, hitting her knee on the ground. The pain attack vanished in seconds after the terrible news of Michael's death. Even though Olivia had seen her husband's lifeless body and had to choose funeral items from an assortment provided by the agency, she couldn't comprehend the grief that had occurred. As the red satin-covered coffin lids creaked under the weight of the first handfuls of earth, Olivia longed to close her eyes tightly, then opened them and realized that saying goodbye to her beloved husband was just the embodiment of her unbridled fear of losing him. However, everything was happening in reality, with no return. A mountain of clay earth grew under the blows of shovels, and on the cross that adorned the grave, between the two dates, a tiny dash placed his life. And now there was a memorial dinner with a clamor of voices. Spoons clattered, canteen workers fussed with dishes, someone was saying something. But for the widow, all of this was embedded in her mind like an annoying cacophony after her husband left. Olivia felt lost and disconnected from reality. A strange kaleidoscope of sensations replaced the deep sorrow of burning resentment at her cruel fate mingled with a sense of loss. Though she heard bits and pieces of conversations about Michael's kindness and trustworthiness, they only added to her pain. She was angry at her husband who had died because of his own carelessness. The feeling was shameful, intertwined with confusion. How to go on living without her Michael? The family harmony was such that not for a moment did she dread her decision to marry him. And now, fate had mockingly put a stop to their future together. The pain of the sudden loss was unbearable. Her husband left life too young, unexpectedly, and without tasting the fruits of his own achievements and accomplished dreams. For 7 years of life together with Michael, they bought a cozy house in the village, conveniently located near the city. On 12 hectares of land, everything fit: a bathhouse, a place for recreation, a vegetable garden. Thoughts of children were almost ripe, until a conversation a few days before the wedding made them decide they would become parents when Olivia was ready. Olivia knew all too well the trials children bring with them. Olivia had celebrated her first-round birthday recently, and not long after that, Tyler and, a year later, Emma had joined her mom and stepdad's family. Olivia took on the task of caring for her younger brother and sister without question. Pity for her mother, who had gone from a cheerful and blossoming woman to an emaciated creature with deepening eyes and protruding collarbones, drove her to action. Olivia took on many responsibilities at a young age, washing clothes before loading them into the machine, drying and ironing bedding and baby clothes, caring for her siblings, cooking and buying food for the babies. All of this was done so that the mother could rest, shower, or eat in peace. The biological father, with occasional token child support payments, was unable to provide for the family's growing needs, and frills and expensive entertainment were an unattainable luxury for them. However, Olivia never felt like an unhappy stepdaughter. Her stepfather, whom she called Uncle Ethan, made no distinction between her own and her stepchildren, showering them with attention and gifts. The mother, recovering from childbirth, regained her former spirit. She tried to distribute her love evenly among all the children and was eternally grateful to her eldest daughter for her help and fortitude. In fact, it was Olivia who had the hardest time during those years. Olivia was able to keep her grades excellent and not lose her feelings for the little ones, as she affectionately called Tyler and Emma. She genuinely loved her brother and sister, but the experience of her younger years, full of the worries and responsibilities of motherhood, did not instill in her the desire to have children of her own at that time. On top of that, Olivia and Michael both wanted their potential baby boy to meet the world in the best possible circumstances. Now, as Olivia and Michael stood at the threshold to a new chapter of their lives, everything was suddenly cut short. This change was so unprecedented and seemed extremely unfair. It seemed that the happiness they had been building, the dreams and plans, both long-term and for what was to come, had suddenly evaporated. At the memorial table, Olivia mechanically ate, unable to taste the food. After a quick farewell to everyone who had come to see Michael off, she returned to the empty house with her mother. Exhausted, the woman settled into the shower, where she finally let her tears mingle with the cold drops of water. The sobering shock of the cold water made Olivia realize that she had forgotten to turn on the water heater. Exhausted, she didn't bother to dry her hair, but simply collapsed onto the bed. Her caring mother wrapped her trembling daughter in a blanket and gently stroked her back, trying to comfort her. Olivia gave herself over to a dreamless sleep and woke up the next morning feeling devastated and unwilling to move on. Day after day, her mother used her vacation time to support her daughter, accompanying her to work and meeting her afterwards. Her mother practically forced Olivia to eat and kept her busy in the evenings working in the vegetable garden. Summer cared not for anyone's pain, blooming in all its colors. But Ruth, Olivia's mother, watched her daughter anxiously, who hardly smiled and seemed joyless. All the efforts of relatives and friends who had visited them several times, including Ethan with Tyler and Emma, did not bring Olivia comfort, but rather irritation. She realized that they all wanted nothing but good things for her, but the obligation to keep her emotions in check and keep the conversations going took a tremendous amount of effort. Olivia wanted more than anything to be alone, to see no one, and have no conversation. That was her ability to deal with her grief, at least for the moment. Talking about organizing the rapidly approaching wake caused Olivia almost palpable physical pain. After 9 days since the goodbye, she asked her mother, "Mom, thank you for everything, but it's probably time for you to go home. Tyler and Emma and Uncle Ethan need you. Besides, it's time for you to go to work, and it's not very convenient to get here." Ruth tried to object to her daughter, but Olivia started to reassure her. "Don't worry, I'll manage. I'll do my best and remember to eat right in the morning and at night. Our almost grown babies and Uncle Ethan must miss you. I feel bad taking you away from your family for so long, and in general, I'll be fine." Ruth, looking her daughter carefully in the eyes, decided to believe her. After all, both Tyler, who was just getting over his first crush, and Emma, who had managed to break her arm riding her bike, really needed attention. Closing the door behind her mom, Olivia was left alone in a house that was so briefly destined to be a happy family nest. The woman's desperate grief was replaced by a deafening apathy, indifference to everyone and everything. But at her once favorite job, she continued to perform her duties, though without the usual enthusiasm of her superiors and colleagues. Olivia communicated with her relatives by phone, sometimes meeting with them during her lunch break. Her mom, stepdad, brother, and sister had suggested several times that Olivia move in with them, at least for a while, but she'd flatly refused. Home seemed to be her last refuge, the embodiment of all her hopes and dreams for her husband. She reasoned that she had no right to leave the place that she and her husband had so lovingly crafted to perfection. Gradually, however, a change in Olivia's mood began to take place. She avoided being inside the house, but she did not dare to go far away from it either. She found it harder and harder to be alone with her dark thoughts, but she didn't allow herself to ask for company. Her brother and sister had their own teenage things to do, and her mom was a pain to get to work. She'd already done so much for Olivia during the most tragic time of her life. Nicole's mother-in-law sobbed as she barely crossed the threshold of her son's house. Her appearance was another reminder of her loss, and Olivia was hesitant to ask for support. The feeling of loneliness was becoming more and more delicious. Long phone conversations with family and friends partly helped distract her. Still, widowed, Olivia preferred to spend more time in the vegetable garden or on the porch until the chill descending on the land drove her back inside. Dawns were rushing in to replace sunsets. It was summer hot during the day, but in the early mornings and evenings the approach of fall was already making itself known. Bitterness lingered in Olivia's mind, and she realized that the common claim that time heals was nothing more than a familiar and deceptively comforting cliché. The sharpness of the irreparable loss was dulling, but it wasn't going away. Over time, the woman began to lose her indifference to the world around her and gradually delved into the working moments that required special attention. I stopped, returning home, looking at the windows with desperate hope, dreaming that at least today there will be light in them, and inside, in a carefully created with love dwelling, will be waiting for her husband healthy and unharmed. With her mind, she knew that now she would have to get used to living without pain and scraps of hope. Sometimes Olivia imagined that she would suddenly be told that there had been a mistake and that someone other than her husband had died in the car. After all, there's not much that could have happened on the road. She regretted that the question of children had been put aside for later. After all, a child would be her salvation and the meaning of life right now. However, Olivia tried not to delve into useless worries, realizing that nothing could be fixed. All that remained was to learn to live again, this time without her husband. After 40 days of forgiveness with Michael, Olivia found the strength to go up to the attic, the place where her husband had set up his office, and devoted his free time to his hobby modeling ships. She was not forbidden to go there, but she herself had never before sought to disturb the peace of the place, which was a shrine to her beloved. Besides, he even cleaned the attic on his own. Said Olivia might unknowingly throw away some important detail in general, Olivia was completely fine with that state of affairs. She realized that even with great mutual love, spouses may well have their own hobbies. If Michael somehow achieved inner harmony in the attic, why not? The woman always knew that he was near, and at the first request rushed to her aid. However, Olivia did not abuse this technique, gave her husband the opportunity to enjoy his hobby in peace and quiet, and did not often look at the attic. She had enough to do around the house, thanks to the painting of the lot, and to clean the rest of the house, and without this man's corner. And now she was entering the area where Michael had recently reigned supreme. It seemed to the woman that going through the things touched by her husband's hands, she seemed to greet him. In addition, there was the need to deal with all sorts of utility bills. She knew roughly how, when, and where to do it all, but now she had to find out if there were any debts, and if so, to eliminate them. The woman crossed the threshold of the attic and almost gave up her plan. My eyes blurred. The bitter lump in my throat came up again, making it hard to breathe. Olivia froze, pulled air into her lungs, coming to her senses a little, then opened her eyes and still managed to enter the room she jokingly called her husband's sanctuary. She was creepy, but she resolutely began to sort through the contents of her desk drawers in search of the documents she needed. As she sorted through the papers, Olivia saw a plastic folder with several clear files. One of them contained a contract with a private boarding house for the disabled called Mercy on the part of the executor. Her husband's first name, middle name, and last name were written on the lines intended for recording the customer's data. Olivia had no doubt that the data on the document had been written by Michael himself. The handwriting was undeniably his. Judging by the text of the contract, her late husband had paid for the maintenance of a certain Wilson Gabrielle in a rather expensive boarding house. Any common acquaintances with that name or relatives of Michael's Olivia did not remember. The date of the contract and the checks in the folder indicated that Michael had started paying for this woman's upkeep at Mercy before they were married and had continued to do so throughout their married life. And this at a time when all the family's energies and finances were thrown into buying and fixing up the house and lot. They weren't teetering on the edge of poverty, of course, but they were still trying to save money. These discoveries caused Olivia a storm of emotion. She felt a sudden jealousy. It was for the sake of saving money that she had given up such small things as trips to the beautician and cultural gatherings. And Michael was contributing a considerable amount of money to a boarding house with an affectionate name but ruthless prices. What surprised her most was not that the money was spent, but that it was all done in secret, without her knowledge. What could have prevented Michael from reporting his altruism? Olivia is sure she would have at least informed her spouse, not forbidden it, but only wanting to look into the situation. Her amazement and growing wariness spurred her to action. What remains to be decided is what to do with this contract and how to deal with the upcoming payment, which was getting closer every day. Setting the file folder aside, Olivia continued to search among the papers, but her thoughts kept returning to the recent discovery. She wondered why Michael had kept his support for that woman from her, and what could this strange secrecy mean from a man who had always seemed to her to be the epitome of honesty. Deciding to discuss the discovery with Nicole, Olivia planned to pay her mother-in-law a visit on her next day off. Could it be that Michael's mother knew something about a certain Wilson Gabrielle? And despite her not always smooth relationship with Nicole, their shared loss had somehow brought them closer together. The day before her visit, Olivia had warned her mother-in-law of her arrival and, following her mother's instilled tradition of not visiting empty-handed, had bought sausage, cheese, her mother-in-law's favorite Shabbat, and cookies. The meeting with Nicole began with polite phrases. They set the table together, but most of the conversation was devoted to the complaints of the older woman. Nicole shared her pain and sense of loss after her son's death, complaining about her declining health, hoping to meet her son in dreams. Then out of the blue, she chided Olivia for not having children, saying that she wouldn't be so lonely if she had a grandson or granddaughter. I'm without blood relatives now, Nicole said, adding that Olivia, being young, could remarry and have children. Olivia, listening to her mother-in-law, felt a painful prick in her heart. Memories of her husband, Nicole's speculation about her future, all of it added sadness to Olivia's already emotional soul. After waiting for Nicole to speak, Olivia smoothly but bluntly brought the conversation to the question that had been troubling her for the past few days. Who was Michael Wilson's Gabrielle? The instantaneous change in her mother-in-law's facial expression didn't go unnoticed. Olivia knew at once that the name and surname were not a blank slate for Nicole, though she was in no hurry to share the information, probably trying to hide her excitement behind the appetizers. Once the table was literally bursting with food, the mother-in-law finally found the resolve to speak. Taking a seat across from Olivia, she began her story. I had hoped not to hear from Gabrielle Wilson again, much less speak to her. But since you're asking, there's probably a good reason. Right. Receiving a nod from her sister-in-law, Nicole continued. Gabrielle was Michael's first serious love. I don't know what he told you about her or wanted to tell you, but that's just the way it is. I didn't like her right away, not because of her looks, of course, but just some insincerity, it seemed, but it doesn't matter. Our Michael was unlucky. This love turned out to be a disaster. Gabrielle was in a difficult situation, in need of help, of support. That was before your time. Eventually, it became Michael's responsibility to keep her in that very institution. It must have been a commitment he decided not to abandon, even after you came into his life. You know, it was hard to break things when. Anyway, he couldn't leave her in the lurch. Listening to Nicole, Olivia felt even more confused. The fact that she had the opportunity to learn more about her late husband's past was important, but along with the revelations came a new burden of heavy thinking and feeling. Nicole continued to share her thoughts about her son's past with Olivia in confidence. Youth and the proper use of makeup can beautify any woman. Certainly Gabrielle's looks could attract attention, and even though she had attractive facial features, as a person she was no match for my son. That's what I thought at the time, and I haven't changed my opinion. She studied only until the 9th grade, and then took only a salesman's course. The desire for self-development in her I did not see. Michael first met Gabrielle by chance, outdoors with friends. They stopped by the store where Gabrielle worked to buy kvass for Okroshka, and that's where he fell in love. Her background was far from ideal. Her father was unknown to her. Her mother was almost deprived of parental rights because of her lifestyle. but by some miracle was able to convince the guardianship authorities otherwise. And Gabrielle herself told how they sometimes had to steal snacks from the table in order not to starve. All this, in my opinion, bad heredity, Michael steadfastly ignored. Even the fact that Gabrielle already had a child born out of wedlock didn't deter him. She even seemed proud to have given birth to a daughter, Alina, at the age of 16. Nicole looked around as if seeking support for her words, and then looked sadly at Olivia. Feeling the weight of this whole story, which was now part of her personal history, Olivia felt bitter and empathized with her mother-in-law and herself. As Nicole continued her story, she described how Gabrielle spoke of her daughter with great pride and how it influenced her decisions in life. Despite her difficulties in life, she found comfort in knowing that she had someone to love and that she was important, at least to her child. She assured me that it was the best decision of her life to keep the baby. Mole, thanks to the girl, someone needs her sincerely. And about the father of the child only said that it was youthful love, and she does not want to hear anything more about him in her life. And there were benefits for a single mom, so she wasn't even worried. Taking a deep breath, the mother-in-law continued. I remember my surprise and even despair when I learned that my son didn't care at all about Gabrielle's social level or her past. And while I was never inclined to be snobbish, her life story was definitely a concern. But that wasn't the main object of my displeasure. Gabrielle's aplomb, but her confidence, and the arrogance she displayed at times literally pissed me off. Nicole described one of the incidents. Gabrielle's reaction to questions about housing conditions was defiant. She would laugh and be rude, saying that her mother's house was more like a barn, that it was impossible to live there. She almost scoffed when she told me that Michael had promised her an apartment. As soon as Nicole finished her part of the story, Olivia felt a strong sympathy for both her mother-in-law and Michael. And while every word suggested how much she didn't know about her husband's past, she respected his choice to keep the secret. Perhaps he was acting out of a sense of duty or concern. Perhaps he wanted to protect his family life from the problems of the past. Nicole continued to share the difficult memories with her usual assertiveness and candor. It's not to say that Michael was indifferent to my opinion, but he was independent in his decisions. When I learned of all the difficulties that Gabriel will bring into his life, hypertensive crisis, you could say, I was in the chair. But I didn't give my son my whole life so that he would now have to shoulder such a burden. Even though Gabrielle had become like that through no fault of her own, it was still painful and hard for me. I even rejected the help of doctors that time. But I didn't have time to think about the hospital when Michael announced that the wedding was just around the corner and they had already filed the application. Olivia was sympathetic to the emotions of her mother-in-law, who found herself in a difficult dilemma between love for her son and fear for his future. I understand you, Nicole. It's hard when you see a loved one seemingly make a mistake. Belatedly, Nicole continued. And you know, when we're together with Gabrielle, they visited me like that. There's no way I could change my attitude. It wasn't Gabrielle's fault, though. Still, I couldn't accept her like that. And even when I heard her and Michael discussing the wedding, I couldn't believe it was real and that my son was going through such an ordeal. I was afraid I'd lose him if I expressed myself too directly. Sighing, Nicole finished her story. The wedding, in the end, didn't happen. The disaster that happened the day before turned everything upside down. Gabrielle had to pack her things that day and take her daughter to settle here at the center. Michael couldn't accompany her a business trip, and there she was, alone, in her own neighborhood, where every corner breathes hopelessness, and there she was, where that terrible tragedy happened to her. It was hard to imagine how much pain and how much loss was felt by everyone involved in that story, including Nicole, who, despite her firmness and integrity, also felt the bitterness of what was happening. It was incredibly difficult for the widow to remember this tragedy that deeply affected their entire family. Michael still asked Gabrielle to wait for his return so they could all move in together. But Gabrielle was in a hurry to leave her past behind, to start her life over. For her, it was all too important, and the move to a new apartment, and Michael himself, and all the expectations of the upcoming marriage. The perplexing how lucky she was on the lips of many, coming from a troubled family, a single mom. and then meeting my son, who decided to start a family with her. It really is a Cinderella tale. But in modern times, I thought Gabrielle wanted to use Michael as a springboard, not realizing how much she really cared. Only my imagination wouldn't have captured the disaster that awaited them. And Michael blamed himself later. He should have waited, taken his time. He would have been back in a day, and everything would have been different. Nicole paused, as if trying to contain her excitement. The day they moved in was fateful. Gabrielle, what they called to match, supposedly had a farewell binge, which she was herself. As a result of that evening, there was a fire. In the house, old, wooden. Someone fell asleep with an unextinguished cigarette. The investigation has been cleared up. Those who slept on the veranda escaped, but Gabrielle and the children were trapped inside. Gabrielle, while trying to save the children, suffered serious injuries, burns, and as a result was unable to walk. I couldn't imagine all the pain and horror. Silence fell between the women, and Olivia quietly took Nicole's hand in hers, trying to comfort her in some way. As if the trouble wasn't enough, Gabrielle's surviving sisters, they started blaming her for everything. The focus of the whole tragedy turned on her. My son had to not only process the loss of his daughter, but also support Gabrielle, who was not welcome even by her own relatives. Nicole's words were full of longing, and it was as if she was reliving the whole nightmare all over again herself. Mutual sympathy helped the women process the bitterness and anguish of the events in their own ways. Olivia listened to Nicole's narration, her words about the tragic story that had touched Michael's life, and her own involvement in the unfolding events. It was hard to immediately understand and accept all the emotions and actions her mother-in-law was describing, but she couldn't remain indifferent to the woman's strong feelings in the face of such unimaginable grief and the sort of relief that came afterward. Nicole, I understand what you've experienced. These circumstances are hard to imagine. They're out of the ordinary. Olivia spoke softly, trying to grasp the complexity of the situation and find the right words. She felt sympathy for Michael, who in the face of tragedy had remained strong and shown concern and support for Gabrielle, even when she herself had succumbed to Nicole's beliefs. Your concern for your son, your desire to protect him. It's understandable, Olivia continued. Nicole's words, which drew on accepted norms and a sort of obligation to her family, made it clear that her mother-in-law's decisions were difficult and forced by circumstances. And in no way are you a monster. You loved and feared for your son, and every mother is close to those feelings. Olivia bowed her head, honoring the experiences of the woman who had become almost family to her. The conversation brought on a thoughtfulness. Registering and accepting so many events and feelings was not an everyday task. Olivia felt her bond with Nicole grow even stronger, while at the same time she realized how difficult Michael's life journey had been before their wedding. I appreciate you sharing this story with me. It's all very important to understand both the past and the present, Olivia added softly, sensing the depth of relief her mother-in-law felt at sharing her experiences with her. Pondering the content of the conversation, Olivia felt like she was on waves of complex emotions. She tried to grasp the variety of feelings she was experiencing at that moment and to properly assess Michael's motives for keeping his previous history a secret. Although Olivia understood that her husband had every right to keep his secrets, she still felt an uneasy feeling deep inside that a piece of her husband's past remained hidden from her. Why hadn't he shared such an important section of his past? As she walked home, Olivia made a reminder to herself of how important trust was in a marriage, and that perhaps she should initiate a frank conversation with Michael. Perhaps it would help resolve her inner doubts and strengthen their relationship by opening up space for more understanding and acceptance. Despite her reflections and doubts, Olivia also understood the strength of the circumstances that had forced Nicole to do what she had done in the past regarding Gabrielle and her son. All people are complex and multifaceted, and every act is caused by a multitude of reasons. Taking a deep breath, Olivia thought about the fact that sometimes hardships strengthen family bonds, and that despite the difficulties, she had found warmth and acceptance in Nicole's home. Olivia didn't have an easy task ahead of her at all. She knew she needed to make a plan and approach the upcoming meetings prepared in order to have the clearest and most productive dialogue with the boarding house management and possibly meet with Gabrielle. "Hello," Olivia replied to the woman in the office. "I would like to discuss Gabrielle Wilson's conditions of stay at this facility and payment options. I'm related to this. I'm a close relative of the guardian, and I'd like to understand the current situation." Knowing what to do with Michael's ex-fiancee's finances now seemed as important as keeping fond memories of him. The woman looked at Olivia and nodded. "I see. I will now tell Gabrielle Wilson that you are to see her. Please have a seat. We won't keep you waiting," the woman responded with a smile and quickly dialed an internal phone number. The woman was to bring up and discuss difficult financial matters, as well as understand Gabrielle's feelings for Michael now and reveal to her the truth about his death. She was to provide care for her husband's loved one, even despite the chasm she had just discovered in their relationship. Realizing the full extent of her responsibility in this matter, and how much she still didn't know about her husband's previous life, weighed on Olivia's mind, but it also instilled a certain sense of wholeness and opportunity to close a chapter of the past that still needed closure. Olivia felt mixed feelings standing in front of a woman who had once been so close to a man who had left a vivid mark in her heart. She tried to gather her thoughts and prepare herself mentally to face Gabrielle. A woman in a wheelchair was brought to Olivia. "Gabrielle, may I introduce your guest?" the principal spoke with a smile and looked at Olivia. Olivia nodded, trying to hide her excitement. "Hello, Gabrielle," she began, and her voice trembled slightly. I'm Olivia, and I'd like to talk to you, if that's okay." She tried to act tactful and delicate, knowing that she was about to break the news to Gabrielle, which could come as a blow to her. Gabrielle turned her face toward her, on which Olivia's observant eye noticed features of confidence and inner strength. It was evident that she had undergone much and was able to maintain her own pride and dignity. "Hello," Gabrielle said quietly, and her voice was calm. "Can I help you?" Olivia sat down next to her, and before she could start talking, her heart sped up a beat. She felt uncomfortable holding the sad truth, but at the same time she knew Gabrielle was supposed to know. "Gabrielle, I'm here to give you the news about Michael," and she carefully, with feeling and respect, began to recount her husband's last days, approaching the inevitable moment of revealing the sad news of his passing. Olivia realized that this was a moment of truth that she was obligated to live through, and she intended to support Gabrielle no matter what it cost her herself. Olivia struggled to choose her words, but suddenly found that it was as if Gabrielle already understood and accepted everything. It made it easier, though it made the moment particularly emotional. "Thank you for your kind words about Michael," Olivia said, responding to Gabrielle's honest, sincere words. Her heart was filled with a whirlwind of feelings: grief for the man who'd gone, sympathy for the woman beside her, and wonder at how complex and closely intertwined their paths were. "Yes, Michael. He's always been so understanding and sympathetic," she continued, "and I think he'd want you and I to meet to make sure you're safe and well here." Olivia looked at Gabrielle and saw in her the strength that the boarding house director had spoken of. She realized that they could get through this painful conversation and survive, supporting each other with their immutable spirituality. "I'm left with the feeling that you and I are connected through more than just Michael," Olivia said suddenly, feeling an unfathomable connection to this extraordinary woman. I want to offer you my help if you need it." Olivia searched for the right words. "Now that Michael isn't around, it's my concern too. I want to make sure everything is going to be okay." After exchanging a few heartfelt phrases, the women truly felt how much they had in common, how unpredictable life could be, and how important support was in it. In this quiet corner of the boarding house, under the sound of pine trees and the light rustling of leaves, they found a new, difficult understanding and a new thread that now bound their destinies. Sitting in the cab, Olivia tried to tame her emotions. The reality of Gabrielle's resilience, her sincere feelings for Michael, and their complicated relationship in the past created a kaleidoscope of feelings and thoughts. When visiting her mother, Olivia felt the need for support and understanding. She needed to talk about her struggles with someone who would share her experiences and help her make the right decision. The mother listened carefully to her daughter, then analyzed the information as she went along. "Mom, I just couldn't leave him like that," unattended Olivia explained reproachfully and defensively at the same time. "He did a lot of things for Gabrielle, and she she truly loved him, even after all these years. Olivia. Ruth began, realizing the complexity of the situation. Perhaps Michael did owe Gabrielle, felt respect and care for her. It was his decision to help her after everything. The misfortunes that have happened to her add to the moral obligation. And if you choose to continue his work, I'd be only too happy to do so. Olivia was relieved to see her mother's support. Ruth, despite possible earlier prejudice, showed the depth of her understanding and compassion. "You're right," Olivia continued, "and it was important for me to see Gabrielle, to understand how she's living her life now. It helps me better understand Michael and his choices." The moment allowed Olivia to draw new strength from a difficult life situation. Despite the severity of the day, it reminded her of the value of kindness, understanding, and her own choice to forgive the past and support those in need. Olivia found the strength to bear the weight of loss while caring for someone who had also experienced loss. Regular visits to the boarding house became not just a support for Gabrielle, but a way for Olivia to face the circumstances of her grief face to face while meeting them with compassion and understanding. Each trip to the boarding house filled Olivia with new experiences. She admired the dignity with which Gabrielle accepted her fate, and although her own circumstances made her think of financial hardship, she never stopped looking for ways to help. One day Olivia had a thought. Maybe there are ways to make this sustainable? Maybe look for some foundations, charities, or even start a fundraiser. There are bound to be people willing to help. Beyond that, there were new ideas about the possibility of volunteering, or even integrating Gabrielle into boarding life in such a way that she could maybe provide some services or work her way up to compensate for part of her stay. Olivia decided to discuss these options more closely with the boarding house director and seek collaborative solutions. With each visit, Olivia became more immersed in the atmosphere of the boarding house, in its quiet rhythm of life. And it reminded her that despite personal tragedies, life goes on, and there is always room for feats of the soul. Time spent with Gabrielle and the other residents of the boarding house became precious. The woman learned to find joy in the small things, in those moments when laughter enlivened dull days, and support came where she least expected it. It was a new level of wisdom and selflessness for Olivia, a path that could soon lead to new discoveries and changes in her own life. Gabrielle's revelations surprised Olivia and inspired her at the same time. She saw how despite hardship and physical limitations, one is able to find the strength within oneself for personal growth and fulfillment. "Your determination and ability to see the light, even in the darkest moments, is something amazing and truly inspiring," Olivia told Gabrielle with warm admiration. With each visit, each conversation, each moment spent together, the two women enriched each other. Olivia learned to meet grief head-on and find wisdom and comfort in her friendship with Gabrielle. The joy that Gabrielle's care and attention brought was readable in her eyes and gave Olivia a sense of deep satisfaction that she was doing a good deed. In return for her generosity and support, Olivia was finding new meaning and purpose in her life after loss. New acquaintances at the boarding house also expanded her worldview and helped Olivia feel part of a larger community where each person was valued and where everyone could find their own path to recovery and peace. The New Year's Eve celebrations, which now included not only family but also friends from the boarding house, became a time of joy and shared warmth. It was a new beginning for Olivia, an opportunity to extend the charity and care she felt for Gabrielle to other aspects of her life. In this way, meeting Gabrielle, a woman who had been through so much, not only helped Olivia deal with her personal grief, but also provided a bridge to new friendships and a new understanding of how meaningful every moment of life is, and how important it is to use it to develop help and warmth for others. And this sudden friendship was now something that was inherently important to Olivia. Needlework became more than just a hobby for Olivia. It was a way to express herself, a break from her daily routine, and, in a way, therapy for her soul. Sharing her experiences with Gabrielle and trying to create something beautiful with her own hands brought joy and a sense of fulfillment. Difficulties at work and a possible reduction in income added to her worries, but Olivia tried not to project her problems onto the residents of the boarding house, especially Gabrielle, who had become so close to her. She knew that Gabrielle's emotional balance and her involvement in the boarding house were important factors in maintaining her spirits and health. The idea of inviting Olga to live together was very brave and touching. It spoke to the depth of empathy and compassion that Olivia sought within herself. However, such a decision required weighty changes in the house and in her own life. I realize that inviting Gabriel to live with me will change both of our lives dramatically, and I have a lot of nuances to consider. But maybe this isn't just a problem, but an opportunity. An opportunity to start something new, an opportunity to help each other on a daily basis. Olivia pondered thoughtfully. She needed to weigh everything carefully, considering not only her financial options, but also the emotional well-being of both women and the possible consequences for their relationship. Considering alternatives, such as seeking social support, including benefits and charitable programs, might be a fruitful solution. Maybe there can be a compromise that allows us to be there for each other and support each other without giving up our living spaces. This search for balance may have led to a solution that suited them both. Caring for loved ones is always a difficult choice between one's own comfort, the desire to be helpful, and supporting others. Olivia realized that the decision she would make had to be made with all aspects in mind: emotional, financial, and practical. Every decision brings change, and sometimes it is that change that allows both us and those we help to find new horizons and new opportunities for happiness. She soon met Fred, the man who began caring for Gabrielle after her tragedy. Olivia's impression of Fred was favorable. The man appeared not only polite, but also exceptionally open. She felt that their conversation was giving her a new perspective on her situation with Gabrielle. Olivia had determined that we all sometimes need to speak out and be heard, and this was one of those times. "No, Gabrielle is not a sister," Olivia replied with a slight smile, "but we did become close friends. Her story didn't leave me indifferent, and I tried to support her as best I could. We see each other regularly now." Olivia felt she could share her doubts about the future, both the need to invite Gabrielle into her home and the changes in her job that might have affected her financial situation. However, she decided that perhaps it wasn't yet time to open all of her cards to the newly acquainted man. "We all try to do the best for the ones we love," Olivia added quietly, looking out at the snows that brought melancholy even in early spring. "But sometimes our powers are limited, and we can't cover every need," Olivia continued, "which is why I sometimes wonder if I'm doing enough, and if what I'm doing is right." The ride with Fred had gone by without a hitch, and the car was a fertile environment for revelations. Olivia realized that her adventures and experiences with Gabrielle had become an integral part of her life, filling the space left by Michael's departure. The kind of attention and care she had given Gabrielle was coming back to herself, bringing new meaning and comfort to her life. When they finally arrived in town, Olivia said goodbye to Fred and got out of the car, her heart light with gratitude for her unexpected but pleasant traveling companionship. She headed home, reflecting thoughtfully on the fact that connecting with others was at the very heart of the human experience, overcoming obstacles and building bridges between people, even when they seemed complete strangers at first. Gratitude filled Olivia's heart as Fred's car rolled along the city streets. Her recent traveling companion, a complete stranger from a few hours ago, had shown the kindness and willingness to help that was so needed at this moment. This gesture of selfless trust and support was worthy of respect. Sitting next to Fred, Olivia once again reflected on her situation and her relationship with Gabrielle. She realized that encounters like this one made us realize again and again the importance of empathy and mutual aid. The time spent talking with her new acquaintance gave her a chance to take her mind off her worries and rejoice in the humanity that still blooms in the world. "Thank you so much," Fred, Olivia mumbled, smiling as her house already loomed ahead. "Your support today is invaluable to me." Soon Olivia was standing at the gate of her house, watching the car dwindle into the distance. She felt peaceful and at peace, despite all the complicated thoughts that had been going through her head all this time. This unexpected twist in her usual evening reminded her that it was often the unexpected encounters and acts of kindness that made our world a better and warmer place. She breathed in the cool evening air and headed towards home. Her heart was strengthened by the thought that unconditional support and mutual assistance make life richer and give her the strength to move on, overcoming any obstacles. Tomorrow would be a new day, and who knows what changes it would bring to Olivia and Gabrielle's lives. But today had left a warm residue of gratitude and faith in Olivia in her heart. Olivia certainly understood all that good advice, but her heart wasn't ready for a new relationship yet. The memories of Michael were too fresh, and the thought of romance was more painful than the joy of starting something new. To avoid hurting the feelings of the caring people around her, Olivia tried not to show her inner resistance, but simply turned the conversation to safer topics. She appreciated their loyalty and willingness to help, but love wasn't something that could be rekindled by force. "I really appreciate all of your support," Olivia told her loved ones, "and I appreciate your intentions. Please don't worry about me. Everyone needs time to grow and heal, and everyone has their own way of doing that." Her relationship with Fred was a welcome addition to the social circle that was helping her overcome her grief and gradually return to a fulfilling life. However, Olivia realized that her sanity and peace within was something she couldn't sacrifice for the peace of mind of those around her. She liked that Fred behaved respectfully and didn't impose his society on her, giving her the opportunity for friendship but without the added pressure. Every day Olivia was learning something new about herself and learning to be herself in a changing world. She knew that the willingness to open her heart would come with time, and when it did, she would make a decision with confidence based on her true feelings and desires. Olivia was indeed facing a difficult challenge. Longing for her lost spouse merged with worries about job instability that was adding new layers of anxiety to her life. There was a response in her soul to her mom's words, but grief and attachment to the past kept her in the zone of heavy memories. Life's shifting winds demanded not just an internal solution, but a practical one. As Olivia contemplated her new circumstances, she realized she had to start planning for all sorts of twists of fate. Getting fired could hit her finances hard, but she knew she couldn't leave Gabrielle without the support she needed. She was determined to look for options before despair and anxiety gained momentum. Perhaps that could include finding additional work, reviewing her daily expenses, or even considering long-term plans for her home and life in the village. Making hard decisions, as is often the case, could have opened up new horizons and opportunities for Olivia. Every choice Olivia made reflected her fortitude and deep commitment to her core values of caring for her neighbors and striving for a life worth living, despite all the hardships fate sent her way. It was not an easy path, but one that had to be traveled with honor and dignity. Olivia, as relieved by such an unexpected and positive reaction from Gabrielle, set about planning all the small and large details to be provided for in the move. Yes, there were costs and changes to be made. She would have to see what adaptations were needed in the house for Gabrielle's comfort, how to ensure easy access to each room, and take into account all the needs related to Gabrielle's health and daily life. Handrails, ramps, or bathroom assist devices might be needed. Olivia estimated these upcoming costs, but realized that the emotional and psychological benefits to Gabrielle of living together may have far outweighed the financial burden. In addition, the opportunity for constant companionship with a loved one and the natural home environment were definite pluses of this decision. Gabrielle had expressed a willingness to change and even suggested a plan B if she suddenly wanted to be independent again, finding a job with a live-in option. This gave Olivia confidence that Gabrielle had the desire and courage to make the change. The family's support spurred Olivia into action. She felt she wasn't carrying the entire burden of responsibility alone. She was inspired to make the house better and more welcoming, so that Gabrielle would feel not just a guest, but a full member of the family, surrounded by care, love, and understanding. Life seemed to have once again offered Olivia a chance to regain the warmth and mutual support needed to cope with obstacles. Sometimes these chances come at the most unexpected times and can bring unforeseen benefits that one could not count on in the ordinary routine of life. Olivia, with mixed feelings of sympathy and bewilderment at her mother-in-law's words, took steps toward a fragile peace. It was important to her that Nicole realize that Tully's home should not be an arena for old resentments and guilt, but a place of healing and new beginnings. "I understand your concerns," Olivia began, "and I appreciate your concern for our well-being. Gabrielle has indeed experienced a lot of tragedy, and her life has not been easy. But at the same time, she is an amazingly strong woman who is learning to find joy in the little things and not give up in the face of obstacles." Olivia continued, "You know what it's like to live with the pain of loss. But we can both find comfort in the care and support of those left behind. Gabrielle is not a burden to me. She is my choice, my friend. I can't imagine my life passing by people I can help, and who can enrich my existence with their uniqueness. Addressing Nicole's last words about not being able to visit the house, Olivia subtly addressed the issue. I understand that your determination not to see Gabrielle is based on deeply personal feelings. However, I wish you would not refuse to visit us because of past circumstances. We have all changed since that time, and we each have our own path to forgiveness and reconciliation. Please give yourself a chance. Give us a chance. Your bond with Michael will forever remain in this house, and your memories of him have a shared value to us. Olivia spoke with love and respect, trying not just to comfort her mother-in-law, but to help her realize that sometimes the past was worth leaving behind the threshold for the sake of a shared future and the good of everyone connected to their family. She wanted to build a bridge over the strife so they could all move forward, supporting each other. Bolstered by Maria Nikolaevna's support and Gabrielle's positive outlook on the changes ahead, Olivia felt confident in her decision. She was hopeful and optimistic about their future living together, and this mood helped her to remain calm and tolerant when talking to her mother-in-law. Olivia realized that the situation they were facing was far from simple, but she saw Gabrielle not only as a friend, but as someone who, despite the tragedy, had found the strength to move forward and bring light into the lives of others. It reinforced her belief that their shared future in the village would prove to be the best solution for everyone. As she listened to Nicole, Olivia was sympathetic to her pain and shame, trying to show that the past could and should be forgiven. She tried to convey the message that even the deepest wounds heal when surrounded by love and support, and that instead of holding on to evil, one can choose the path of compassion and understanding. Nicole, while expressing her regret at Gabrielle's imminent departure, still supported the idea of moving. Her words and the prepared preparations and contacts added to Olivia's confidence that she would never be alone in this challenging journey of caring for Gabrielle. With the explanations and contacts provided, she knew she could always ask for help or advice. Everything was preparing for a new chapter of life that required adaptation and courage, but also promised new joys and deep moments of connection. Gabrielle was looking forward to starting her vacation, and Olivia was ready for her new role, not only as a homeowner, but also as a housemate, companion, and perhaps, in a sense, a lifeguard. Fred's agreement to help with Gabrielle's move was a great relief to Olivia. Her actions are the true embodiment of family support and togetherness, because remodeling a house to fit new needs is not just physical labor, but a willingness to show love and care in action. Nicole, though feeling anxious and awkward, overcame her internal objections and stopped by for a visit. This meeting was another step toward reconciliation and the realization that time of sincere communication can heal even the deepest of heart aches. Olivia was very touched by the fact that Gabrielle met Nicole without anger and resentment. This attitude speaks to Gabrielle's big heart, her ability to move forward and forgive. It certainly helps to create a spirit of reconciliation and unity in the house. What a constructive spirit has emerged in this home. Laughter and vitality once again filled the walls that had long held silence and sadness. Ruth is right in noticing how Olivia's activities and community spirit help her find new sources of energy and vitality. Interacting with Gabrielle probably brought a fresh breeze to her heart, which is so important on the anniversary of such a great personal loss. Olivia, while organizing a memorial service for her late husband, is also trying to take Gabrielle's needs into account so that their shared home is now also a symbol of care and remembrance of her loved one. Her sincere desire to share space and memories with another woman who was important to Michael gives this new beginning a special meaning. And when Olivia brought Michael's handmade model boats out of the attic, it undoubtedly added a new dimension to their renovated home. They were now surrounded not only by memories of the past, but also by faith in a future in which there was room for new hobbies, dreams, and perhaps even the creation of new models, the two of them. Fred offering Olivia a job as a dispatcher was a timely and perhaps even life-changing offer. After unsuccessful attempts at finding a job and going on interviews, the opportunity to work from home and have a steady income sounds like a real breakthrough. Perhaps in Olivia and Gabrielle's confusion as they glanced over, there was not only a question of decision, but also amazement. Their world continually presents them with encounters and events that seem more than just coincidental. Olivia, looking at Olga as an old friend and now roommate, could sense that their life paths were closely intertwined. Should she put off the proposal now, or should she look at it as a sign or even a gift from fate? The silence between the women could be taken as a moment of inner reflection on the fact that sometimes decisions come unexpectedly and require an instantaneous response. Fred's addition to their lives is already a noticeable one. Not only has he helped with the move and adaptations in the house, but now this gesture with the job offer may change Olivia's life and give her new encouragement and hope. Fred's offer to work as a dispatcher from home is not only a chance to financially support the house, but also a chance for Olivia to feel needed and get back into a work rhythm. Could her silence have been a manifestation of doubt or a desire to defy uncertainty, make a decision and go with the flow? This was the moment when fate seemed to have thrown them a trump card. And now Olivia was faced with a choice: pick up that card or continue pulling questions of interest from the deck of life's trials. Olivia and Gabrielle's unequivocal looks could say, could this be the solution just for us? And do we need something else to make sure that sometimes support comes from when you're not expecting it? Fred's offer may be the one step back from the endless struggle that will allow Olivia to take a step forward towards stability and new opportunities. Olivia and Gabrielle, each in their own way, have expressed a desire to take on a new role in their lives, seeking autonomy and usefulness. Olivia, energetic and determined, immediately responded to Fred's offer, seeing the job of dispatcher as an opportunity to start a new page in her professional life. Gabrielle, full of compassion and concern for her friend, offered herself for the role, giving Olivia a chance to rest and recover from all her recent experiences. It's interesting to watch Fred's reaction, his surprise and admiration for the resilience and integrity of these two women. He is attracted to their independent spirit and their lack of straightforward attempts to take advantage of his resources, thus reinforcing his respect for them. A conversation about work and professional qualities on the veranda opens up new perspectives for Olivia and Gabrielle. But when Fred leaves, the conversation between the friends turns to another topic: Olivia's personal life. Gabrielle may be trying to cheer Olivia up or move Olivia on, but she does so in a somewhat unobvious way, titillating Olivia with her suggestion of a possible interest in Fred. Olivia, who is still pining for her estranged husband, responds rather harshly, showing that it's too soon for her to think about a new relationship. This is a reminder that close friends, as Gabrielle and Olivia would be, can sometimes not quite understand how deep and complex the grieving and recovery process is after a great loss. This incident also reveals another facet: Gabrielle's secret feelings for Fred. She was embarrassed by her intervention because perhaps her own feelings and desire to be helpful made her too bold in speaking out. Moments like these are a reminder that even the closest and strongest of relationships can come to the brink for a moment because of misunderstandings and miscommunication, especially when emotions are hurt. But it is through moments like these that the depth and strength of that relationship is tested, which can only ultimately bring greater understanding and a deeper connection between people. The situation between Fred, Gabrielle, and Olivia develops in increasingly interesting and unpredictable ways. The caring and affection that began between the newly found friends has developed into something more, especially on Fred's part towards Gabrielle. Melanie apparently was not exaggerating in praising her nephew. His kindness and proactive attitude echoed in Olivia's and Gabrielle's hearts, but it was Olga who seemed to have won his attention without reservation. Gabrielle openly enjoys Fred's attention and care and his plans to help her recover physically. Meanwhile, Olivia continues to behave with restraint so as not to raise Fred's inflated expectations and appears to be happy for her friend with genuine nobility. The emotionally driven dynamic between all three highlights the amazing human capacity for empathy and multifaceted love, not just romantic love, but also friendship, where people support the happiness of others even if it goes against their own desires or expectations. Fred's proposal to Gabrielle is the culmination of both his realization of the importance and strength of their bond and his willingness to do everything in his power to ensure that they can fully enjoy life together. Therein lies also an offer of trust in a future that Fred believes can be fulfilling for Gabrielle as well, despite her physical limitations. Olivia, according to the story, accepts the news and the possible future of her dear ones with gratitude and joy. Her generosity certainly shows that the strongest relationships are built on mutual support, not rivalry. Gabrielle's anxiety about how her relationship with Fred might be perceived by Olivia indicates a deep respect between friends. Olivia probably realizes that her and Colia's departed relationship is part of a story that helped them both grow and move on, and that Gabrielle's happiness and newfound feelings for Fred could be a beautiful continuation of a story in which she herself played an important role. It's a testament to the incredible maturity and capacity of Olivia's heart. The relationships, bonds, and intertwining lives of Olivia, Gabrielle, and Fred developed into a beautiful story of support, respect, and the search for happiness. Olivia, with warmth and generosity, embraced Gabrielle and Fred's happiness, and there was no room in her heart for pity or regret over the fact that the relationship was not between her and Fred, but between her close friend and this beautiful man. Olivia shows strength of character by allowing herself to continue to miss her husband who is gone, but she doesn't close herself off to new opportunities for her friend and herself. She focuses on doing what she feels is her duty while maintaining a bright faith in the future. The tale of Gabrielle's romantic fairy tale takes a new turn with the restoration of her health, and Olivia finds her professional and personal fulfillment. In her relationship with Fred, she finds renewed intimacy and understanding that had been lost, and rediscovered love, which shows the human heart's capacity for healing and rebirth. A sense of full circle is created when Olivia, after taking Gabrielle's advice, finds happiness and love again, meanwhile keeping a piece of her past, a cottage in the countryside that just couldn't help but have special meaning to her. The story of three souls, their intertwining destinies and journey through loss, discovery, and love, reminds us of the eternal values of human relationships, and that even in the most difficult moments there is hope, opportunities for happiness, and the transformative power of kindness.